Welcome to Simplify. I'm Caitlin Schiller.
I'm Ben Schuman-Stoler.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi. We're back for a traditional Caitlin and Ben Simplify episode extravaganza. Hey, today we have an interesting episode with a person who is an expert in sober dating.
This is a surprising topic.
Yeah.
How did you come across this topic? Sober dating.
Well, I came across it in the wild in my own adventures in dating as a woman in her upper 30s and just encountering a lot of it. A lot of people who were like, oh, I don't drink. And me being like, we can go for a walk. That's fine. Actually, I'd rather do that anyway. But I don't remember seeing a lot of that in my late 20s and very early 30s. So it was kind of on my mind. And then I saw this book circulating around and I was like, ooh, we got to talk to Tawny Lara. She is known as the sober sexpert. She's a writer and a speaker and talks about alcohol-free sex and dating. Her writing's been featured in Playboy and Men's Health, Huffington Post, and she's got 2 essay collections. But what we're focusing on today is the unimprovably titled Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without the booze.
There's a couple of things, and we can talk about it more in the bookend, that I'm excited to talk about today. One is, this is a very simplify topic, actually, because when we started this podcast, like what we're looking for is ideas that are simple and that we can simplify for people that can make a difference in their lives, that make a big difference. And I actually think there's a lot in the interview that's very simple and that might challenge people to think about some stuff in their lives. Like we've talked about how you think about so many things in your work, in your life, in your relationships, that this is like something we haven't really talked about, even though we have talked about nutrition. Yeah. We have talked about drugs.
That's true.
So to me, it's really interesting. And I have a couple things I want to talk more about after the interview to that, including, quick tease.
Yeah.
I saw some medieval castles this summer.
Say more.
And I'm going to tie a tour of a medieval castle to this interview.
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's hear the interview and then we'll get to medieval castles.
It's weird, but bear with me.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. Hi, Tawny. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So I like to ask Simplify guests, because you are a person of many, many different talents and you publish and speak in many different places. I would just love to have you introduce yourself the way that you like to be introduced.
I love that. I'm Tawny. The internet likes to call me the sober sexpert.
Great title.
I'm a writer, podcaster, and all of the work that I do in sobriety and sexuality education is really creating the resources that I needed when I was younger. So I'm excited to chat about all that today.
So and you wrote, today we're going to talk about your new book, which is fabulously titled. It is called Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without booze. So what got you here? So your own personal journey informs a lot of this book, but tell me about what you were thinking and what you wanted to give people when you started writing Dry Humping.
So I started this book as a memoir, as a personal essayist, and I'm a journalist. I tried to write this as a memoir, as my sober sex and dating journey. I'm a big, voracious reader of the quit lit canon, as they say, literature about quitting drinking. And in early sobriety, I just devoured memoir after memoir to be seen, So of course I wanted to write my own memoir. And then I spent years writing it that way. I took writing workshops and realized that something about it just didn't feel right. There was a lot of my story that I wanted to keep to myself. And it's difficult to do that when you're writing a memoir about sex and sobriety. People in my workshops would ask really great questions and I found myself feeling defensive. Like, I didn't say this out loud, but internally I was like, oh my God, that's so personal. Why would they ask me that? And I'm like, well, I'm in a memoir writing workshop. They should be asking me those questions.
Yeah.
But, that visceral reaction I had to those questions showed me that maybe memoir is not the vehicle for this. So I let it sit for a little bit. And ultimately I started researching sex and dating, like the role that alcohol plays in sex, dating, and relationships from a journalistic lens, because I was still obsessed with the topic of sober sex and dating. And that's really like when the story all came together, reading studies, interviewing doctors and neurologists and other sober people, sober curious people, people that still drink alcohol, talking about their relationship with alcohol and how that connects to their sexuality and gender identity. And I really put my journalist hat on and dove deep into research. And I guess you could say then Dry Humping was born.
The potential for wordplay with this title is rife. Very good. I got interested in your book because back on the dating market at 38 now, I've been noticing that so many people don't drink alcohol. And when you're younger, I think when you're in your early 20s or mid 20s and you're out there in the dating world, or at least when I was out there in the dating world in my mid 20s, which was, a good 12 years ago, everybody drank. That was just what you did. You met for a drink. But now people are less likely to do that. And, especially in a city like Berlin, there are people out there with all kinds of backgrounds. Maybe they have, maybe they have a history of alcohol use disorder. Maybe they just don't want to anymore. And I have an increasing number of friends who are also experiencing this. And they just feel so bad the next day that they no longer want to drink. I have a friend who refers to it as a shame over. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the relationship between desire and alcohol.
The more that I learned about my own relationship with alcohol and sex and dating, and then, of course, the more I interviewed other people, the more I learned about myself. I'm sure you can relate to that. Mm-hmm. The more I learned that the topic that kept recurring was liquid courage, liquid courage, liquid courage. And that opened it up. Because, when I thought this book was going to be for people that are in long-term recovery, that are like, we've committed to a life without alcohol, one day at a time. But I couldn't get over the fact that everyone seems to be struggling, or at least relating to the concept of liquid courage on dates, in the bedroom, when you have to have an uncomfortable conversation with your spouse. And that's really when, like I said, when Dry Humping came about, is like, wow, okay, liquid courage is a universal yearning that we've all just been socialized to lean on. If there's someone cute at the bar, what do? You take a shot and you go hit on them.
Right.
Yeah. If you're nervous for a first date, what do? You have a glass of wine. You're nervous to be naked in front of someone for the first time. You split a bottle of wine. So it's like these things are just inextricably linked in our society all over the world. And that is just fascinating to me. And I think it's almost more fascinating to me how many drinkers are interested in this conversation. Like I said, I thought it was just going to be me and sober people. But it seems it really is something that everyone's dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day about how she realized that once she stopped drinking for a couple of weeks just to see how it was, that when she would walk into a party or would walk into a new social situation, she would look for someone she knew and literally hold on to them, because she was used to having the prop of the alcohol and of that. So the physical prop and also the liquid courage of what the alcohol would do for her.
Yeah. I mean, that is so normal. And because there is something comforting about having a drink in your hand, even if it's just water or seltzer or something. And I don't know, maybe it looks like if you're not drinking, maybe you might get in your head about, oh, well, I'm the only one who's not drinking anything. They're going to know that I'm sober. They're going to know that I'm struggling with my relationship with alcohol, which is never the case. Like we obsess over ourselves significantly more than people are paying attention to us. But like you're saying, that your friend wanted to feel comfortable. And that's why so many people rely on alcohol. Even in a social setting like that, just having a drink can be comforting.
Yeah. So then when you started on your sober dating, your sober love life, your sober romantic journey, what do you see as some of the benefits, and what did you experience as some of the benefits of trying to just do this stuff without alcohol?
I love this question because for me, it reminds me how honesty is so connected to my recovery, because it takes a great deal of honesty with yourself to admit that you might have a drinking problem or that you might need to drink less. That is very humbling. once you're honest with yourself about that, for me at least, that trickled into every aspect of my life.
Ooh.
You know, I was like working towards a promotion at a job that I really didn't want. And I got honest with myself about it and ended up actually demoting myself.
Oh, wow.
And focusing more on my writing. And sexually, how I was showing up in bed while drunk was largely performative. And once I quit drinking and began forming authentic, real connections with people, those real, honest connections showed up in the bedroom too. And I didn't have to perform. Yeah. Once you stand up for yourself, it has profound impacts on the rest of your life. And, you know, like I say in my book, I'm here to help you, you know, get rid of liquid courage and cultivate intrinsic courage. Each chapter is all about getting to know yourself on a more intimate level, how to bring people into that relationship with yourself that you've been nurturing. It all starts with being real with yourself. And, you know, one of the biggest questions that I get is like, how can I be more confident on a date or in the bedroom without alcohol? And that question is so raw and so vulnerable. And I get it because I was there too. And I remind people great deal of confidence to say, you know what? I'm not going to drink, or I'm going to drink less. I'm going to change my relationship with alcohol. In a booze-soaked world, you know, that takes an insane amount of confidence and real courage. So if you can just bring that into your dating life, into your work life, into your romantic life, your family dynamics, you really can see a shift.
Yeah. A weird connection just popped up in my mind, and it's that when a person who's been on birth control for a long time gets off of birth control, they're suddenly aware that they are attracted to different partners, or not attracted to the partners they're actually with or they've been with for a while. And they have a clearer vision of what their body is telling them. And I'm wondering, did you experience anything like that when you stopped drinking? Did your preferences change? Were you suddenly able to see what you wanted in a person more clearly?
I love this connection so much. I've never thought about that before.
Ooh.
Yeah. My standards for who I would date or hook up with or have relationships with were pretty low. I usually met people in bars. So I was like, as long as you like rock and roll and whiskey, then you're my soulmate, you know? So I had a lot of soulmates. But once I quit drinking and I spent a lot of time on myself, and that means figuring out why I drank, going to therapy, unpacking all of the stuff that I hid from using drugs and alcohol, you know, that really helped me obviously figure out who I am. It also gave me more confidence to actually like pursue quality people. And what I mean by that is people that treated me right, people that respected me, people that are also taking care of themselves, prioritizing their own mental health and physical health. I didn't look for that when I was drinking and dating. That was not a priority to me. I just really wanted external validation. That was really it. So anyone who could give me that was, like I said, my soulmate, and we could drink whiskey together and have drunk, crazy sex. And those relationships were usually toxic. And now I'm in a relationship almost 5 years now, and I've been sober for almost 8. And I would have never in a million years thought I could deserve someone like who I'm with now that I'm sober.
Oh.
And, you know, he's in recovery too. And that is a big part of our relationship. Like we figured out why we self-medicated. We did the really deep, ugly, arduous work to get healthy, to get our brains right. It's something we're committed to every day so we can stay away from alcohol. And the fact that we're both on that journey individually really strengthens our bond.
That's beautiful. It's nice to hear that when you stopped sort of quieting your inner voice with external substances, you were able to, you're able to be guided to a person who would be really great for you, it sounds like. Something that was interesting to me in your book was that you said oftentimes alcohol use disorder can intersect with body image disorder. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's in chapter 1 where it's called Dating Yourself. And it's all about the importance of spending time alone in early sobriety or sober curiosity. And I don't just mean like sitting alone and like taking baths. I mean, really getting to know yourself, getting to know who you are without alcohol, enjoying being alone, reconnecting with your body, reconnecting with your mind, connecting the body and mind together, basically getting all of that ready. So when you do meet someone or someone's, then you're able to fully show up and be present in that relationship. And a big part of that for me was dealing with my body dysmorphia. For anyone listening who doesn't know what that is, for me, it's like literally looking in a mirror and seeing a distorted version of myself. And as you know, in my book, I interviewed a lot of people who also struggled with body image issues and used alcohol to make themselves feel more confident while naked in bed. Men, women, trans people, everyone struggled with that. And it was also, a little disheartening to hear just so many people speak negatively about their bodies. And I really thought it was mostly women, but I talked to many men and several trans people, and it's body image issues is something we all struggle with.
For a person who is curious about trying out a life with less alcohol, it sounds like a lot of what they can expect at the beginning is just extreme discomfort. What else might someone expect? And how do you tell them to deal with it, or how did you deal with it?
It's such a good point, because it's like, extreme discomfort is correct. For me, it was like as corny as it sounds, it's like I really met myself for the first time since I felt like myself again since I was like 14. When we're binge drinking during these developmental stages, teens, college, early 20s, that's when a lot of binge drinking happens. And that is when our brain is still forming. So once you look at the neurological impact of what excess alcohol use is doing to you, it's kind of hard to unlearn it.
For this person, this hypothetical person we're talking about who is, sober curious, they're looking for a relationship, they're out there dating, what do they do instead of order a drink when they go to meet someone? How can they, or what would you tell them so that they can cope with these feelings that come up in the moment?
Yeah, I have a whole chapter on alcohol-free date ideas and conversation starters. I always recommend something with movement, something where you are looking at something external. And by that, I mean like you're going to a museum, going to a botanical garden, going to the zoo, something like that. And the movement is helpful because you're getting rid of those jitters. Your body's moving, so you're not just like sitting there staring at each other, drinking coffee. You're actually moving. And the point of looking at something external can actually take a great deal of pressure off of the date, because you're looking at a beautiful piece of art or these gorgeous trees and you're talking about what you're seeing, as opposed to just staring at each other, talking about, oh, what do you do for a living? What are your hobbies? And it can feel a little rote.
Yeah.
Like these dates can feel a little like interviews. It can really take the pressure off. Yeah, the book has tons of a whole chapter full of these sober date ideas.
You also have some language to communicate your boundaries when you're dating, especially if you're meeting up with someone who does drink. Would you mind sharing one or two of those sentences with the listeners?
If you feel comfortable, you can let them know why you're not drinking. In chapter 1, I talk about the importance of dating yourself. Once you figure out your relationship with alcohol, it's way easier to have those conversations that you're asking about, because you know why you're doing this. You know why you are drinking less or not drinking at all. Then those conversations are going to be a little bit more, they'll flow a little bit more.
And again, this is showing how really knowing yourself and getting comfortable with yourself leads to better external decisions in your life.
100%. I love the way you worded that. And that's with body image, that's with dates, that's with work. I mean, it can really show up in all avenues of your life.
So then we've talked a lot about sober dating. We've spoken a little bit about dating yourself. Let's talk about sober sex, because that is a thing that I think, we see in movies and TV sometimes. But man, when I think about the instances of hookups on TV and movies, they often are accompanied with a glass of wine or after a night at the bar. What does all this alcohol use actually do to our bodies?
It's, again, we're talking about binge drinking here. If you have one drink, that's a very different thing. We're talking about, so like alcohol has what's called a biphasic quality. It has two phases. The first phase is what I just described. You have a drink, it relaxes your shoulders a little bit, and that's it. You maybe don't even finish the glass of wine. The second phase is it tends to be more binge drinking territory when you are drinking specifically to get intoxicated, drinking to black out, drinking several drinks in one sitting to change the way you feel. If you're drinking alcohol to make yourself less anxious, to feel more confident, whatever it is, you have to remember, like, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Alcohol is a drug, and it is going to impact with your senses. It's going to impact you neurologically. If it's numbing your anxiety, imagine what it is doing to your body. It is numbing your senses. It is hindering genital response. So that means it can cause vaginal dryness. It can lead to erectile dysfunction. So all this talk about drunk sex is better. And it's like, well, why? Why is it better for you? And I feel more confident. I feel more comfortable in my body. I have less inhibitions. I'm more willing to try different positions. And no judgment here. Do whatever feels right for you. All I'm saying is identify what drunk sex gives you, and then let's maybe find ways that you can get there without alcohol. How can you feel confident in bed with your body without alcohol? Why do you need alcohol to try these sex positions? Do you even want to do these sex positions, or is it performative? Like, that's really what I'm talking about here, is really figuring out who you are in bed without alcohol. And that is the discomfort that you mentioned earlier. It can be very disconcerting when you are faced with your true sexuality for the first time.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think that when people just default to wanting to have drunk sex, it's because they're prioritizing quelling of fear rather than actually connecting.
Oh, 100%. And it's like, there's a whole chapter on PTSD because this comes up a lot, including myself, coming to terms with the fact that I was sexually assaulted when I was drunk, thinking that I had consensual sex with certain people and realizing that I wasn't consenting. That is really difficult to deal with in early sobriety. That's just difficult to deal with in general. So, when people say drunk sex is better, I used to say that too, because I wasn't feeling triggered when I was drunk. I would have never had that bodily awareness before, and I would have never had that confidence to say I need to stop or I need to pause.
Yeah. Right. So we're not even really in touch with our needs or what our body is going through at all when we're boozed up enough to, quote, try something adventurous. It's really kind of horrifying, and that it's sold in media in general as something so normal is really concerning.
It is. And it's, again, I don't want to bash alcohol. Like, I do want to just be very honest about what it is, though. Like, it is a drug. It is an addictive drug, and it is still the only drug in the world that you have to justify why you don't use it. That's the world that we live in. We have come a very long way with the Sober Curious movement, with the non-alcoholic drink movement, with tons of books about sobriety. And, that's great. We have so many resources now, but we still live in this incredibly boozy world.
How would a person know if maybe it was time for them to explore a more sober lifestyle? What would you say to someone who's like, I don't know, maybe I should? Or maybe somebody who hasn't even thought of it yet. What might be some signs that it would be a good idea?
For me, it was repeatedly Googling, do I have a drinking problem? So, spoiler alert, if you've ever Googled, do I have a drinking problem? Maybe try a dry month. Maybe take a week off. Maybe try mindful drinking.
What's mindful drinking? Sorry.
Yeah, no, good question. So mindful drinking, it's a movement where is really just you're being mindful of when and how and where you drink. Mm-hmm. What time of day are you reaching for a drink? What social situations are you reaching for a drink? How are you feeling when you're grabbing a drink? So it's almost like maybe you've heard of like a body scan meditation where you're scanning from head to toe, like how does your body feel? Mm-hmm. It's a similar way of like, instead of just mindlessly saying like, let's go for happy hour. It's like, well, okay, how do I feel today? Will alcohol make me feel better? Will it make me feel worse? You know, applying the concept of mindfulness, mindful eating, you know, mindful journaling, just applying that to your relationship with alcohol instead of, you know, the opposite of mindlessly chugging happy hour mojitos.
Yeah. What do you hope that people, after listening to this episode or after picking up dry humping, what would you hope that they understood that they didn't understand before?
I would love for people to understand that you don't need to have one of those cinematic rock bottom experiences to change your relationship with alcohol. Mm-hmm. You don't have to lose everything. You don't have to lose your job and get kicked out of the house and live under a bridge before you change your relationship with alcohol, like it's portrayed in the media and in film and television. All you need is just the desire to drink less, or maybe curiosity about your relationship with alcohol. I would say just forget everything that you've learned about alcohol and just really get present with how alcohol shows up in your life. Also, don't compare your relationship with alcohol to someone else's relationship with alcohol.
Because it's so unique, because your reasons for drinking might be so unique.
Exactly. I spent years justifying my drinking like, oh, well, I don't drink like him. I don't drink like she drinks. Look at how she acts when she drinks, and counting how many drinks she had and I've had less. And, you know, like the mental gymnastics of the comparing. When you're comparing your relationship with alcohol to someone else's relationship to alcohol, you're not really seeing your own, because someone might be able to have 4 drinks and be completely fine. Maybe you, after 1 drink, you make really bad decisions.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, it's really getting present with what is alcohol doing in your life? And then to keep it more specific to the book, what is alcohol doing to your love life, your sex life, and your dating life?
Those are really good questions to ask yourself. Tawny, if you could rewrite a scene in Sex and the City or in a popular movie to show someone who was benefiting from making more sober decisions about their romantic life, what do you think media without so much alcohol would look like? What would we show, or what would we not show? What kinds of more nuanced stories do you think would be out there?
I will definitely think on that, on how I would rewrite a story. But I will say I really appreciate the story arc of Raj on Big Bang Theory. Uh-huh. If you've watched Big Bang Theory, he is a guy who has social anxiety and he cannot talk to women unless he's had a sip of alcohol. And his character comes full circle because we learn that he has social anxiety. He has a placebo moment where he's hitting on a girl and he realizes he's drinking non-alcoholic beer and he didn't need alcohol the whole time. So I think that was handled really well. Mm-hmm. And they let the joke be the punchline for long enough. And then they were like, okay, we need to figure out why does Raj drink the way he does? Like, see, and that's my example. He only had like a couple sips of alcohol, but that was still problematic for him because he couldn't talk to women. So if he compared his relationship with alcohol to someone else's, he would have totally missed, oh, I have social anxiety. I should get on medication and deal with this.
Mm-hmm. That's a great example. All right. One last question that I always love to ask people that I get to talk to for Simplify, because this is a nominally a book podcast. Have you read anything lately that you really love and you would recommend? It doesn't have to be in this topic area. It can be anything.
Yes. I am a total book nerd, so I love this question. I recently finished Monsters by Claire Dederer. Mm-hmm. It's called Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma. She talks about different problematic artists and talks about the fan's dilemma of separating the art from the artist. And what I loved about the book is that it's so well researched, and we don't really know where Claire lands. Like she presents excellent information and the reader can decide how they feel. In such a polarizing world that we live in now, it's really hard to come across really well done, unbiased journalism. And I think Monsters is a masterclass on presenting the facts and letting people decide for themselves.
That sounds so great. I took a look for that for myself. Thank you. Is there anything that you wish we'd covered that we didn't talk about that you would really like people to know or to think about? I want to make sure that we covered all the things you really want people to know.
Yeah, I would remind people, if you are struggling with alcohol abuse, substance use disorder, depression, anxiety, all of these are usually co-occurring disorders. The excessive drinking is very rarely the problem. It's usually the symptom.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage listeners, if you are struggling, you are not alone. There's so many resources out there. Go to my website, Google mental health resources. I have a podcast about all of this. Like, you're not alone. There are people who want you here. And I would just encourage everyone to give themselves some grace and work on your shit and take it one day at a time and just really be kind to yourself.
Beautiful. It's a really nice way to end. Tawny, Lara, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Welcome to The Bookend, where we end with books.
And medieval castles.
You've been
I gotta know. What is this about? Please.
Okay, so here's what I did. I was on a tour of a medieval castle near the Rhine River.
In Germany.
And I learned about why they needed so much storage for alcohol.
Uh-huh.
Do you know why
No.
there was so much alcohol?
Well, I mean, I feel like medieval times were pretty bleak in general.
No, but it's because the water wasn't safe.
Ah,
There was no,
I've read that.
there was no, what's it called? Sewage. So you couldn't always trust the well water. You couldn't always trust water. So what they did is they mixed alcohol in with the water, and they often drank, instead of water, just sort of low alcohol drinks.
Wow.
And I had this realization of like all the jousting and all the like knights and all the medieval stuff. Like everyone was just wasted.
Oh my goodness.
All of human history, like for hundreds of years of European human history, people were just low grade buzzed. Day drinking all day.
Wow.
And I won't go into like the history of mixing the wine in Roman history, which is also
your favorite
interesting
part of history. Yes.
But the tie-in here is this thing that's been a part of life forever that we don't ever question.
It's true.
And that like we talk about simplify, we talk about looking at the things in a different way that affect our lives. And I'm not only talking about dating here, I'm talking about alcohol in general.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a big part of a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know, toxic relationships at work or something, it might be something that you have lived with for a long time that we want to
say, hey, maybe you could look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was a great tie-in, by the way, of the medieval knights and jousting. Because, like, who knows how those jousts would have gone if those guys weren't wasted?
Kinda.
Just like, who knows how so many romantic encounters would have gone if we weren't under the influence of, you know, a drink or two. I mean, bringing it back to Tawny and what she was talking about, I asked her what she noticed when she stopped drinking. And I think she said honesty was what she noticed when she stopped drinking, because it really forced her to sit with herself and say, okay, who am I without this? Just like if you were to quit your job and be on unemployment for a couple of months, you have to decide, all right, who am I without this? And maybe, who knows, if you're a very casual drinker, somebody who drinks when they're at a party every 3 months, this wouldn't be a thing. But if, you know, you're out regularly, seeing friends, having a drink, a lot of social life is organized around having a drink. And I mean, dating, as we talked about in this episode, and just relating in general. We use it for so many reasons. And so much of it is about getting ourselves comfortable enough to get close to one another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really interesting to think about, who are we if we remove the things that alter our minds and our moods slightly?
Yeah, and I have a book recommendation about that, actually.
Do you?
But before that, I wanted to say sober dating is an interesting kind of use case of just being aware of Didn't Tawny call it mindful drinking
also?
Also?
I thought that was really interesting. Mindful drinking. So you're not like necessarily saying no forever. You're saying, I'm going to stop this and see what I notice. Like it made me think about, do you remember our episode on the Whole30?
Yeah.
Where I think her name is Melissa, said just, take out these things and see how your body feels. This is kind of the same principle.
Yeah.
And notice how your body reacts, how your mind reacts, and like what's good and bad about it. What do you want to keep?
And we talk about this a lot when it comes to like productivity, social media use, where our energy is going, what to focus on. And I think we have to also then talk about
alcohol,
these kinds of things that we do, that we put into our body all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, you say honesty. For me, it's like this being present idea and connection. And if you're dating and you're looking for connection with people and you're looking to be able to communicate authentically and for other people to do that, it requires some kind of connection to yourself that alcohol can maybe provide in flashes, but not in any kind of deeper way. And so many people are looking for more connection. It just seems simple and obvious in that perspective than to not do it with the hangovers.
Yeah. Connection and honesty can seem easier with alcohol. I've definitely thought that before, that it seems easier, but it's a kind of disembodied connection that allows you to push through what your real feelings actually are. And if those feelings are anxiety, then that's a data point you're missing.
Yeah.
If those feelings are, I'm unsafe, that's a data point that you're missing. And if you're drinking alcohol so as not to say things, so you don't actually confess feelings or you don't bring up something that's bothering you, that's data too. And
Okay, so books.
Let's do it.
Let's do some books?
Yeah.
The first one is Michael Pollan. You know Michael Pollan?
Yep.
It's called This Is Your Mind on Plants.
Okay.
So he wrote How to Change Your Mind, which was like a big book about psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
And then he followed it up with this little book, This Is Your Mind on Plants. And it's 4 essays.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is about caffeine.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm bringing this is, like I was talking about the medieval consumption of alcohol. 90% of Americans drink caffeine regularly. And that means that basically most of our interactions are with people on this drug, on substances. So most of us live most of our lives in a caffeinated state, which to me is like a bit trippy somehow. Like, ooh, am I actually dealing with somebody, or am I dealing with the caffeine in their body?
Uh-huh.
And basically there's a lot of like conflicted research about whether it's good for you or not, and but there's one thing that seems for sure, which is that it messes with your sleep. And that's also something to me about the sober dating and about alcohol in general. As I've gotten older, alcohol the main thing it does is make me not sleep well. And I find that really taxing.
Yeah.
It turns into just a hugely costly thing to drink a lot and not sleep.
Yeah. It's not like a one-night endeavor.
Right.
It's a multi-day recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the books I wanted to bring up. Yeah. The second book I brought is called The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace. She writes a lot about sobriety. The Alcohol Experiment is going 30 days without alcohol. And this, I was reading through the blinks, and there was something that stuck out to me, which is that, actually, I kind of want to just read it.
Go for it. Yeah, let's hear it.
Kind of a long bookend. Okay, here's what it says. Does drinking really relax you and help you handle stress? If you think about it, you may realize that alcohol just mutes your stress. The only way to actually make stress go away and achieve true relaxation is to address sources of tension. This is kind of what we were talking about with, like, if you feel jittery and need a drink to not be jittery, why are you jittery?
Right.
But yeah, probably talking to your boss, dealing with your relationship, whatever, instead of the tequila would be better, but because you wake up feeling worse, right? And also getting drunk and making mistakes and feeling guilty and that shame over thing you talked about. However, it's also physiologically true. Alcohol is a depressant, which means our bodies counterbalance it by releasing stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And it takes a week for those hormones to leave the body. So if you drink regularly, you pretty much always have increased levels of adrenaline and cortisol.
Damn.
Which means that when you have that, like Tawny was talking about, also not exactly that like one beer thing, but if you have like a few drinks, then you're basically always having elevated stress hormones in your body also. And that's just part of this mindful thing. Is it possible that alcohol is actually creating more stress than it's solving? And
that's interesting.
Only way to really find that out would be to then go on like a 30-day or a couple weeks or something.
Yeah.
Dry time.
That was a really good rec for this episode. Thanks.
Yeah. What about you?
I've just got one. Predictably, it's a Gabor Mate book. It's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. So it came out in 2008, but it's a really human exploration of addiction. It's full of real life stories of addicts, but it's also packed with science-based analyses of why and how people get addicted. And it's really humanizing and real. And interestingly enough, it also challenges the reader to consider ways in which they are addicts to something, to whatever. We're all addicted to something. I have been addicted to athletics at various times in my life for various reasons and, snacks. But we're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
Other people, like when you fall in love, it's kind of like an addiction. So he encourages us to look at addiction through a really relatable human lens and to look at addicts as people, even as he weaves in science, which is kind of the Gabor Mate special. And special note, we have actually Daniel Mate, who is his son, and the co-author on his newest book, which is a smash hit, The Myth of Normal. He will be in, I think, one of the next 2 episodes. So stay tuned for that.
Nice. Cool. Should we wrap it up? That was a cool episode.
We should. Yeah, thanks. All right. Simplify is produced by me, Caitlin Schiller, Ben Schuman-Stoler, Phoebe McIndoe, Maria Levacic, Ben Jackson, and other invisible and wonderful audio editors who help us sound our best. It was produced here at Blinkist in Berlin, Germany. And if you'd like to try Blinkist and hear the blinks to these books that we just mentioned, please go check it out, Blinkist.com/simplify. Tap on Try Blinkist and use the code BOOZEFREE. All one word, booze-free. There you go. 14 days free. Check out the blinks. Maybe consider doing your own 30-day mindful drinking experiment. All right, then, till next time, checking out.
Checking out. See ya.